What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. My name's Jaleesa if you're new here, and today I'm going to be discussing with you all 5 facts about military spouse life. So if you have not had the opportunity to check out my channel trailer, I am a Navy wife. I've been with my husband for 7 years and we've been married for 2.5 years. I'm also a Virginia Beach native. So if you know anything about the Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area, you know we are a huge military town. We've got every branch of the service located here in this area, and I'm also a federal government employee. So I've seen my fair share of colleagues and friends come and go due to either they're active duty military, their parents are active duty military, or they're married to active duty military. I myself, I didn't grow up with a military family member or parent outside of my godfather. So I had very minimal knowledge of the reality of being a military family member or spouse. So I definitely had my fair share of misconceptions, but today I'm gonna share with you all the reality from my perspective as a Navy wife. So fact number 1, the military does not dictate where you and your family will receive orders. So what I mean by dictate is the military is not just saying, oh, you're going to Djibouti. Oh, you're going to Japan. Oh, you're going to Norfolk. No, it is a conversation to meet a middle ground and a compromise. In my experience, and really from my husband's perspective, every duty station that he has received orders from, he has actually asked to go there, and the military has honored that. My husband was stationed in Japan for 4 years before moving out to Virginia the first time. He went overseas for about 1.5 years to Bahrain. We moved to Seattle, and then again, we're now back in Virginia. And every place that we've been stationed, he has asked to go there. What ends up happening is when your spouse is up for orders, they'll go and they'll contact their detailer. The detailer will produce a list of options based on your service member's rank and what they do in their branch of service. And from there, they'll say, hey, based on what you provide to the service, these are all the places that we need your expertise. And from there, your service member, your spouse, your partner can say, hey, I want to go to this place, and this place. From our experience, my husband has always given them 3 places that he wants to go. And typically 1.5 years, a year out, it's super far out, and there are other people who have higher priorities who are going to be leaving beforehand. So the first look, we typically never get orders. The second look is typically that happy spot where we receive orders and it's like, yep, you're going here. There is a caveat in the sense of the military is a service business, a service branch, it's a government service. And so anybody who signs up for the military signs up with the understanding that, hey, I am here to protect and serve my country. So if my country and my service branch at the time is like, hey, I know you want to go here, but I actually need you to go here, that's just a part of being a part of the military. But I do feel like that is less common than what actually happens. And again, I'm speaking from my perspective, as well as now that I'm older, I do have quite a few family members who have joined the service, and it's the same thing. They get to choose and speak up and say, hey, I actually want to go here. And they've always gone to places that they wanted to be at. So please rest assured, if you are a military girlfriend, fiance, or a new wife, understand that this is a mutual thing. The military wants to make sure that they are keeping their service members happy and their family members happy. So it is going to be a compromise. Fact number 2. Staying in military housing is not very common. So prior to marrying my husband, I thought that we would get married and at some point we would live in base housing, but that is not the case. We have never lived in base housing. We have friends who are active duty military who have never lived in base housing. It is not a common thing amongst the entire military family community. One thing I will say, that if you're not married to your active duty member right now, then it's not even an option. In order to be eligible to stay in base housing, you have to be married. After getting married, then you can go through the process of applying to get on the list, whatever it may be, to live in base housing. But again, I've never had that experience, and a lot of the friends that I have that are married to other service members, they've just never lived in base housing. At one point, I did ask my husband, like, hey, maybe we should try to stay in base housing to save some money. And he was against it 100% all the way, did not want to do it. And the reason for it is he enjoys and loves what he does, and he loves serving his country. However, it's just common and natural to want some form of a break, a detachment, somewhat of a separation of work and personal life. And so his thought process is, hey, I'm at work 8-12 hours a day, 5 days a week as it is, and then I'm on call at times. If they need me to come in, I have to go run in there and do what they ask me to do. I don't want to live a block or two away from my office. I enjoy being able to get in my car, leave the base, and be able to detach a little bit and leave work at work and come home and enjoy home. And that's fair. That's like if you are a nurse or you're a surgeon and you're working 8 to 12 hour shifts, and then you leave your operation room, you leave your medical facility, and then you walk 2 blocks and you're staying in a house or a home that is ultimately provided by your job. It'll be hard for you to really disconnect and turn off that work mindset. And so my husband and I, we really do appreciate having that break of, hey, this is work. We love what we do. We enjoy what we do. We're going to give our all and give our best when we're at work, but when we're home, we want to be home and settle into home. Also, I know that there are some individuals who have had the experience living in military housing that will vouch and say that it is cheaper. Again, I can't say that from my perspective, but I will say that, there's caveats to it. When you are in the service or when your partner is in the service, they get something included in their pay, which is called BAH, which means basic allowance for housing. And what basic allowance for housing is, the military gives them a certain amount of money each month based on where they are stationed to pay for rent or to go towards their mortgage, whatever form of housing that you and your spouse or partner have. And so what I have researched and heard is that when you are staying on base in base housing, you no longer get that BAH. That's no longer a part of that military member's paycheck, or it's at a reduced rate. Because again, the idea is if the military is providing your housing, then you don't need a extra large lump sum of money to go towards rent because we're providing that for you. Whereas if you don't live on base and you go find your own housing, whether it be an apartment or whether you buy a home and you take on a mortgage, you get to keep that. And I know prices right now are a little bit expensive, but again, it's all about weighing the pros and cons. I know for the apartments that my husband and I have lived in, and now our house now, we pay a pretty significantly reduced rate. It's not expensive. We're not spending all of his BAH, and we can take that and use it and put it towards savings and other things that we enjoy doing. So again, once you are married, or if you're already married to your service member, understand that military housing, it is an option for you, but it does not have to be a default. You can decide and choose not to live on base if that's something that you all would like to do. Number 3 is you get free and affordable healthcare as a military spouse. So when you marry your service member, you will have the opportunity and privilege to opt into the Tricare system. Depending upon your military member's or spouse's status in the military, there are different options, but for the most part, if your service member is active duty, you'll live in that Tricare Prime and Tricare Select world. Now, I did make a separate video where I discussed in detail my experience as a military spouse. I'm gonna link that below in the description box where I'll break down in detail my experience. But Tricare Prime is considered the free option that most people consider and talk about. And then Tricare Select, it does cost a small amount, but there are certain privileges attached to it. Both options are great. I have not had a bad experience with either one. It really just depends on your medical needs, your preference, and the medical needs for your family. So just keep in mind of that. Again, go check out my video where I talk more about my experience as a military spouse using the Tricare system. Fact number 4 is that your military spouse will make good and decent income. Now, as I stated earlier, I am from Virginia Beach, and the streets talk, gossip happens, and the word for years since I've been growing up is that military people make good money. And they do, but you're not going to be balling out of control like Beyonce and Jay-Z. You will have a good lifestyle, a sustainable lifestyle, but it's not like they're billionaires, okay? For the longest, since my husband and I have been married and been together, I have always made more than my husband. And it's just now that he and I are equaling each other out. So the two main things that make up your spouse's income is their rank in the service. So whether they're E1 or E6 or O1 or O5, as well as their years of service. Those are the two main components of what makes up their income. And then there are other things that make it up. As I discussed earlier, basic allowance for housing, that is included in their income, as well as depending upon the type of tour that they're doing. So if they are, in my husband's case, on a ship and deployed, they'll get special incentive pay because they're in heightened and increased danger or increased stress environment. So they'll get paid more for that. So a lot of factors are in play when it comes to your military spouse's income. And again, it is a good income. You know, we have not struggled. Everything has been great. But it is not, again, not billionaires, not millionaires. And I think really at the end of the day, the pay is what your family lifestyle is accustomed to. Fifth and final fact is that your life will not be overly consumed with everything military. Prior to marrying my husband, I just assumed that the military would dictate everything in my life. Joining the military is not just a commitment for your service member, family member, but as a spouse, you're also committing to this journey as well. You're committing that you're going to be there and support your spouse. Wherever they move, you are going to be willing and open to move as well. And so I just assumed that that was going to be my life. I assumed that all my friends would be military. I assumed that I would be staying in military housing. I assumed I'd do my grocery shopping at the military. I assumed that even like the fun things like bowling or going to the movie theaters or shopping, because they do have military malls or base malls, I'd be going to those places. And that is nothing further from the truth. I still live a relatively similar life than I did when I was not married to my husband. I do have some friends who are military spouses, but a lot of my friends are people that I knew from college or that I knew when I started my career. As I stated earlier, we've never lived in military housing. So, you know, I can't speak to that experience because we've just always stayed, you know, in the cities that we have been stationed in. I do not shop at the commissary because if you've ever been stationed or been to the Virginia Beach area, we are a city, like a suburban city. And so the commissaries are actually a distance to go to, whereas it's easier and closer and more convenient for me to drive to the Kroger's than drive all the way to the commissary. And in my opinion, I don't think you save that much money at the commissary, but again, that's just my opinion. So I know that there are some people who may have this misconception or assumption that when you marry someone in the military that your life is just going to be overly consumed and taken over by everything military, that you're going to be moving and you're going to be going to all of the military events and activities, and that's not the case. I will say from my experience, it's what you make it. If you and your spouse are super engaged in the activities that take place on the base and at their command, then that may resemble your life. But if you're someone who wants to have a balance, or someone who's like, hey, I don't know if I want to engage in that at all, that's also an option. Well, the moral of the story is that I just want to share with any girlfriends who are dating military members, fiancés, and new wives that yes, being a military spouse is an adjustment, but how much of a role the military plays in your life and marriage is dependent upon you and your partner. But your life does not have to change because you are married to a military member, and you can still have some of the normal habits, tendencies, traits that you value prior to being married. Please like this video and put comments below if I was able to help you clear up any type of concerns, insecurities, or misconceptions you had about being a military spouse. If you are a military spouse now, please let me know if you can relate to anything that I talked about. If you're a girlfriend or a fiance, please comment any misconceptions or assumptions that you have that I didn't speak about. I am more than willing and happy to make a part 2 of this video if it helps you all. Also, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be making more content similar to this. If you have any military questions or centered videos that you'd like to see, put them below in the comment box and I will definitely do so. Again, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.